Well, here's a few news articles that I thought were interesting. Oh, well, this one's already been taken down. Anyway, there was an interesting video from Kanye West where he openly said that he can say all the anti-Semitic stuff he likes because Adidas will never take him down. And he'd been openly saying anti-Semitic stuff, getting kicked off Twitter, getting kicked off some other platform, and Elon Musk is still supporting him, and Trump is still supporting him, and the official Republican committee is still supporting all three of them, holding them up as the archetypes of their party. So, like I say, the Republican Party is very closely becoming anti-Semitic and Nazi, just completely without any mask on anymore. And Kanye West is one of their leaders. And anyway, this led to the interesting statement. I did not know this. The Adidas shoe company was made by Nazis. In fact, it was two Nazi brothers that worked together on a shoe company. Then they had a fight and made rival shoe companies. And they promoted their brand by their shoes being much better than the others that were used in various Olympic committees. So I mean, the Nazi past of the Adidas company is very well known, apparently. And so I guess this is why they're quite happy to have a spokesman that is openly anti-Semitic in America. And this, by the way, is nothing new. In the 30s, before the World War II, there were a lot of really famous anti-Semites in America, like Henry Ford and Charles Lindbergh, and they almost made it to presidency. And by the way, quite a few of the people that did get in the presidency were anti-Semites, but they were a little quiet about it, like Nixon and a bunch of the others. And for that matter, Trump would say a lot of these things, but they not quite as openly. But it does seem to now be open and fashionable to just hate Jews openly. And like the thing Kanye West said to get him kicked off Twitter is, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 and on all the Jews, strongly saying he's going to kill them all. And Trump said something recently too. He said the Jews better shape up before it's too late. So we are entering a very dark period where the United States government is embracing open bigotry, especially if the Republicans get back in. So this I thought was very interesting. I've made the same discovery myself. I think many of my students are afraid of math, and I know why, because math is taught very, very badly in the American education system. And I was very pleased to see one school has improved the outcomes of their math department by teaching math in a very different way in elementary school, which I'm very glad to see. I learned a better way to teach math, and I had great success and won an award for teaching subnetting, which is the math at the level where I am. And then I was a high school training camp at City College, and I presented a session on how to teach math, and there were no teachers that cared at all. The only people that showed up were students who were interested. But in my experience, well, what little I see, high school teachers have almost no freedom, and they anyway. So they talk about how one school has in fact reformed their math training and made it better. There are well-known better ways to teach math, but very few schools use them. They mostly use the old system that does not work. So I've been waiting for this and expecting it. I mean, Biden proposed this student debt relief, but the problem is it is patently, obviously unconstitutional what he's doing. I mean, he has very good arguments that we should forgive the student debt, and that after all the other debt we've forgiven, it's ridiculous that the students have to suffer this burden, which would be fine, but the president does not have the authority to do it. And if he does, then Trump would have the authority to just allocate funds to build the wall. The whole structure of the United States Constitution is that the president cannot spend money. He has to get Congress to allocate the money, and yet he's doing it. So an appeals court has paused it while it reviews the case, and so there's some legal technicalities that make it difficult to sue, but I think legally the president's in the wrong here. Is it spending money? Well, it is definitely spending money. Although, I mean, I don't think, to be fair, I don't think anybody has even attempted to justify it on the grounds that it's not an expenditure of money. You could try that argument. You could try saying, for example, that all these debts are just going to go into default anyway. But in fact, the Congressional Budget Office says it's expected to cost $400 billion, I think. I know it's enough to wipe out these complete so-called Inflation Reduction Plan savings. So it definitely increases the national debt. But it doesn't exactly need money to spend today. That's right. But I mean, the big issue is nobody can find standing to sue. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But I expected it to be blocked, and it's blocked temporarily. It's if it does go through, it will benefit the current generation of students in debt, but it will have long-term consequences that I think will harm us. And this is very surprising, and I haven't seen an explanation of why Trudeau has immediately frozen the sale of handguns in Canada. I don't know. Normally, you only see this thing after there's a major mass shooting or something. Then everyone passes this. I don't know why the Canadians are suddenly doing this now and doing it so extremely. And as a matter of fact, I don't know Canadian law. I wonder if their prime minister has the right to do this unilaterally like this. Anyway, we'll see what happens. It's I certainly would like to see less handguns in America. From what I understand, Canada has a much smaller gun violence problem, but I guess they don't want it to get any bigger. Anyway, it's that's surprising. They say won't be able to import handguns, won't be able to sell them anymore there. It's an interesting move. You can never do that here. Oh, I don't think U.S. folks are buying in Canada. I think they're just buying from red states. I mean, the gun manufacturer lobby is extremely powerful in America. There's never any significant restriction on guns at all here, much less lately. So I don't think anybody has to go to Canada to buy guns. I think it's just the gun lobby wouldn't like losing the market of what little they do sell in Canada. But I think Canada's peanuts compared to America. I mean, America has, I think, 1.2 guns per person and record sales. And a huge number of those guns are now AK-47s, which are really dangerous. And they now have the QAK, a branded handgun just for QAnon people who are, explicitly, openly planning to use it against other Americans in a civil war. That's what they talk about all the time. That's why they want the guns, so they can take over the government by force. So it is very understandable that other nations do not want to encourage this. So Pfizer, the funding for the vaccine program and even for the vaccine research program from the government has been cut in America. So although there's talk of some newer vaccines against COVID, it is not clear who would pay for it. Anyway, they're going to increase the price to $110 to $130 a dose, although Americans with a health plan probably won't have to pay that, like me, like about half Americans. So I was sort of hoping the pandemic would lead to socialized medicine in America, but it didn't happen. And now we seem to be going back to the previous system where if you have a good job and a health plan, you're fine. And if you don't, you're pretty much frozen out of getting health care because the price is outrageous. So that's back to situation normal. A student told me about this company I'd never heard of, Aomi. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they make backup and partition solutions to copy whole hard drives and operating systems onto a backup and to remake partitions and such, and I think recover deleted partitions and stuff, important technical support activities. And this is a new company, and I've been told they have a good product for this sort of thing. So that's useful for people who want to do deployment of operating systems and tech support. So it's all over the news. Musk is apparently going to own Twitter by this coming Friday. And he promised people he's going to fire 3/4 of the people currently working at Twitter. And this is part of a gigantic, ruthless reorganization to turn Twitter from what it is now into something that would actually make money by huge restructuring, which is, many people are upset saying they won't be able to do a good job at Twitter anymore. I'm less upset. I think this is standard business procedures. The fact is Twitter has never made any money. They're paying for thousands of developers. Those developers do not seem to be producing anything that makes any money. I don't even see anything at all. I haven't seen any change in the Twitter experience in 10 years. So I have no idea what they're paying all those people for, and that's just what Musk says. Why are we even paying these people? They don't seem to be doing anything. So this is what happens when somebody takes over your company and they say, all right, we're going to shake things up around here and turn this into a profitable company. Firing 75% of people is pretty extreme, but it's very normal that there's a huge bunch of layoffs when somebody comes in. SF can say goodbye to Twitter headquarters? Well, I don't know that. But certainly if I was Elon Musk, I would consider that, moving the headquarters somewhere else, firing a lot of staff, changing the policies. changing everything, that would seem to be justified. Twitter is just losing and losing money, and obviously it needs to be run very differently. But we will see. The fact that he has switched to Republican and openly embracing anti-Semites, though, is perhaps more troubling. We can certainly expect Twitter to become far more friendly to the right wing, and perhaps we'll see if that the politics of Twitter become very unpleasant. But I think it'll just turn into what it was before they banned Trump, which I was okay with it, but there were all the right wingers on there. I'd just block them and move ahead. We'll see. So America is moving to have cybersecurity ratings on devices. And many people want to see these on cars, EV chargers, Internet of Things devices, and everything. The IoT is going to have a voluntary system of putting security labels on your devices by next year. And maybe we'll move to more and more of this. This seems like it may benefit us. We'll see what comes of it all. The last one I'll mention is Windows subsystem for Android. Microsoft has built Linux into Windows, which has been available for about the last 2 years on Windows 10 and Windows 11. You can just go into Windows, add remove features, and turn on Linux on your Windows, and you can just run it without a virtual machine, just directly on Windows. And now you can run Android in Windows 11. And so you can only a limited amount of apps, and there are still bugs and stuff, but presumably, as this develops, there will come a time when you do not need an emulator to run Android apps on Windows. And that would be nice for my mobile device hacking class. Right now, apparently, the only thing you get is Android games from the Amazon store, but presumably at some point they'll connect it to the Google Android App Store, and then it will be more valuable. So